Thank you very much, Ceann Comhairle. And first of all, at the outset, I'd like to address this budget for what it is, and that is the Green Party's budget. And definitely the biggest case of the tail wagging the dog that we've seen since the foundation of the state. Because Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael have obviously sold their souls completely for power. Because not only are we seeing this budget brought before us, but it is terribly important for people to realise that the Finance Minister, in his press briefing after this budget speech, outlined that the Finance Bill will legislate for a carbon tax hike of €7.50 per annum until 2029 and €6.50 in 2030, which will in effect mean he and this government are marrying future politicians and future governments to this tax, whether they like it or not. And the people of Ireland have to understand that that is going to equate to €1 billion, €9.5 billion of extra taxes being burdened upon them over the next 10 years. And I am not a climate change denier. I am interested in protecting the environment and the climate. I want to ensure that the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of the future, that they will have a world to live in. And I want to protect every species in that world, including the human species. And that is very important, because we have to remember the humans that have to live here today and tomorrow and every other day. What has been done in this budget and the attack that has been made on rural Ireland, and as already been stated, it is a direct attack. Because what are we telling people here today now, for instance? I kept an account, Ceann Comhairle, and I'm sure would be interested in this, and very seldom I do it. But this evening I kept an account of phone calls specifically that I got related to the budget that were negative. 72 was the amount of calls. Every one of those were from the greatest county in the Western world, County Kerry. 72 calls telling me what was wrong with the budget. Now, I'm only one politician from Kerry, and I am only a representative of an average all the time. They're not all going to ring me, surely be to God. But 72 people rang me, give you out about it. And you know, they weren't wrong, and the people that are behind them at home weren't wrong. And I'll tell you what they saw was wrong with it. If you have a person below in Kerry today that is very proud of the motor car they might own, it might be 5 years old, it might be 10 years old. The Jeep they might have, it could be 10 years old or 15 years old or 20 years old, but it's theirs. And they are being told now they're going to be penalised from a tax point of view, from the petrol, from tonight, the excise that's going to be put on the petrol. They're being hit all the time. And why so? What are they guilty of? They're guilty of that they mightn't have the wherewithal, or they might have other priorities. Their old car might be doing away fine, or their Jeep is doing away fine. But just because Eamon Ryan thinks they should be driving an electric vehicle, and actually he doesn't even think that, because I'll quote and I'll remind him again, and until I die I'll keep reminding him what he said one day. And I hate talking about anybody in their absence, but I've said it to his face and I'll keep saying it to him. That he suggested that in villages, in rural areas, the people should have no car. What they should actually do is have carpooling. So for a village, and he put a figure on it, he said if you had 5 or 10 cars parked in the local village and everybody come down and use those cars, wouldn't there be some tearing for the cars in the morning when people would be trying to go to work? I mean, for God's sake, that will tell you the mentality. And then we have the geniuses in Fianna Fáil and in Fine Gael that decided to listen to what this man said. If he told them that night was day and vice versa, they'd believe him at this stage, because they're swallowing everything. And why? Because of power. Because of power. Ministerial jobs and being in positions of power. They sold their souls, and the mandate that they had themselves, where they were asked to come up here and represent people, they left an awful lot of people down. And I want to say things like that I do welcome. Where I'm from, where the tourism capital of the world, and we have Killarney, which is the crown in the jewel in the crown of tourism in the world. And what I'm hearing from everybody today is, well, we're gone from 13.5% to 9%. They wouldn't give it to us when we wanted it, because 9% of nothing equals nothing. And that is exactly what our businesses are doing now at present. And it is actually heartbreaking to see all the fine hotels and pubs and restaurants, and they all shut. And I do appreciate some of the measures that have been put in place. But when I look at what is actually happening, the government are all over the place. And again, rural Ireland has been left behind in this budget. And where is the funding in this budget for rural public transport? Where is the investment in this budget for working from home in rural areas? Where in this budget has it tackled the issues around conditions, for instance, in our meat factories? And why was the PUP payment not reinstated in this budget? And I want to remind people that rural Ireland is going to be hardest hit in this budget. And we will pay the highest price for this budget. And the essential services, the essential things that we need, for example, in Kerry University Hospital, we need more acute beds. I've been studying very diligently exactly what is in this budget for health. And if it relates down to our hospitals, and if we get additional acute beds, because when people talk about our hospitals being full to capacity, it's very easy to fill your acute beds. If you have 3 or 4 acute beds in the hospital, you need to have proper acute services to be able to deal with not just this pandemic, but any type of incidents that would occur. And we need these services to transcend us down on the ground and in our own local areas. I'm so disappointed at a time when we have access to all of these billions which we're able to borrow, but the priorities are all wrong, quite simply because we are tying ourselves up in knots with additional taxes and charges that have not been there in the past and that are going to be there after tonight, after midnight, when this budget is going to be inevitably voted through. And I just want to remind people again, it's not just tonight's budget. Tonight is a very significant night, Count Caller. What we're doing here with regard to the climate bill is we're condemning future taxpayers, students that are going to school today, are going to be paying the price for this. And I appreciate that students have a strong interest in the climate. But do they realise now that after tonight, when they'll be going out into the workforce and people will want to put petrol in the car or diesel in the car, they're going to be paying a very high price for that. Thank you.